The Rams have some defensive issues to clean up before the playoffs. They gave up a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter last night in Seattle and a game-winning 2-point conversion in overtime. The result was a dramatic 38-37 win for Seattle. Breakdowns by the Rams defense overshadowed spectacular performances by Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. Stafford had 457 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Nacua had 12 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. Seattle now has the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Rams can get it back if they win their final 2 games and Seattle loses their last 2. The Rams finish up at Atlanta and at home against Arizona. Seattle plays Carolina and San Francisco on the road. The Lakers are 12-3 on the road after their 143-135 win at Utah. 45 points for Luka Doncic. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm excited as always to speak with one of our premier scholars in this country, really worldwide. He's a lecturer on African history, civilization, and religion. He conducts tours to Kemet, Egypt, with his wife. Ashra Kwesi is joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominique. Honored to be here.
It's great to talk with you. There's so much to talk about. And you really make it a mission because I know that during Christmas season and during Easter season are when you typically tour all around and try to enlighten us about the connections between ancient African culture and civilization and these holidays, the images, the traditions, the rituals.
Right. Well, as you mentioned, going back to Kemet, which means black, by the way. Okay, that's the original name for Egypt. And why this time of the year, seeing where these things were literally plagiarized or copied from the temples and tombs. We look at the birth, okay, of Jesus, and we look at the resurrection of Jesus, okay, and Easter, and then the symbols and everything around it. Why should we practice something and know nothing about it? Especially the fact that many of the spiritual ideas came from our ancestors thousands of years ago. Nothing like it on the planet Earth. Right there in each, the monuments are there. You can't find this nowhere else but there. So when we think about and talk about and practice, okay, and have a belief system around something that's around a holy birth or a resurrection, then let's go back to its origins. Let's go back and see where it came from. And that's why I find it very important at this time of the year. After all, I can validate it through the visual documentation that I do with the lectures around the country. So as you mentioned, with the time of the winter solstice, of which our ancestors called the Kames, or the birth of the sun, the holy birth of Haru, the Kames Haru. In fact, Christmas was actually, the name came out of Kames, the spiritual birth. I show it on the reliefs in the ancient language called the Medu Neter that the Greeks refer to as the hieroglyphics.
The reliefs are the carvings on the walls of these temples and such. Why is this so important to you? This is like a life mission. You've been going 43 years to Egypt and telling these stories and showing these photos and statues. Why is it so important to you that we as black Americans or black people globally understand this spiritual, cosmological history?
Because spiritual enslavement, that could be the worst form of enslavement, when you're deifying something outside of yourself. Okay, or the colonization of the afterlife. Peace be upon him, as another Grandmaster teacher, Dr. Clark, would say, that when you look at the image as a representation, okay, or in my neighborhood, when you have plastic babies and the plastic European families and so forth, and the brainwashing that this is real, this is the Holy Family. As I asked one man, I said, what's this plastic baby doing in the yard? Well, that's the Son of God. You see, knowing that studying the temples and monuments where this was plagiarized from. As I look at the clip with, I don't know if you remember the clip with Richard Pryor, when he goes inside of the pyramid and he starts reading some of the stuff, and he said, I'm going to tell everybody about this. Well, that's how I felt. Going back to Kemet, if I can use that little scenario, after going back and studying and giving recognition to my teacher named Dr. Josip Yakinen, that I did not know this, all right, until I heard him at Long Beach State as a young man in school at this time. And at that time, he's talking about African history and spirituality, and I stopped him. I said, can you prove what you're saying here today? All right. Because I'm like everybody else. I'm thinking this is what it is. It's real. That's what it is. I can't have anything. I don't have anything else, okay, to invalidate it. He said, young man, I can take you back to Africa and show you. All right. He said, but above all, we need young people like you to go back and do the field research. All right. Now, keep in mind, I'm 20 years old at this time. He's telling me this. So that started a dream. That sparked a spirit in me. I said, I'm going to go back and see if this is real. I returned back with him in 1981, and I was blown away. All right, the Mimicine temples blew my mind, and all the writing everywhere. I said, this is real. I got to know about this. Never knowing that it would be 43 years of my life, 14 years under him, now 43 years nonstop returning back. So that's why I feel it's so important that in my space and time while I'm here, all right, I have a duty, okay, and also giving respect to our ancestors, all right, to reveal this information now that I know it, okay. Should I not say nothing about it when it's all, I can see all the representations that they have at this holiday, and when I see things, I can reflect back to the Mimicine temples. When I go back to an area like the temple of Aset called the Temple of Isis, the last temple that was shut down by Theodosius and Justinian in the 4th and 6th century AD. Why did they shut these temples down, that one being the last one? All right, that the Ta-Nehisians or Nubians fought the hardest to keep open. There we see the Holy Child. There, even though they try to chisel her out, she's still there holding her Holy Child Haru in the lap. It's all over the temple. Thousands of years before Western art was even in existence, or the images of representation that we get of the European representation of Mary and Jesus holding the child. So there I was able to see on the Mimizi house, the Magi, okay, ideas of the Magi, taken from the spiritual Netarus of ancient Kemet, spiritual entities, all right, showing what they refer to as the Dua, with their hands up, giving adoration to this holy child. And there we see that Tahuti would be like an angel that we would say today. The saying that Aset's going to have a holy child. Isn't that the same story that we get of Gabriel that tells Mary, he appears in the back room, that you're going to have a holy child? One account after the other. No one can deny this. Then I understand why the temples were shut down. Because in order for the Western version of these ideas of Christianity and the celebration of Christmas, for it to survive and for people to believe it, okay, and have faith in it, that this information could not be revealed. So these temples were under the sand for 1,000 years. They were only dug out at the turn of the century. Now, was it dug out to tell the stories that I'm talking about? No. They were dug out to make tourist dollars. When Napoleon came in 1798, it was a fascination with Egypt, all right? Because when the temples were shut down by the Byzantine Romans at this time for the formulation of Western version of Christianity, they didn't want the world to know. So the Western world didn't know anything about Egypt, all right? The Greeks were the first one that introduced Egypt to the Western world, okay, with the Greek philosophers like Thales, Pythagoras, Plato, Socrates, and so forth. And they admired Egypt. They loved Egypt, okay? They even deified themselves on Egypt. In fact, they took some of the spiritual Netarus, okay, and named themselves like the Neo-Dionysus. They said they are the new Osiris, all right? That's the Greek name for Asar, okay? In the Zep-Tepi, I know a lot of things that I'm talking about people may not be familiar with, but translation Zep-Tepi, that would be Genesis, where we see a creation story of the world. It goes back to ancient Kemet with the first man and woman, Asar and Aset. But now the Zep-Tepi or the Kemetic story, they're created simultaneously. There's not a rib taken from Asar to make a Set because they did not have misogyny or hatred towards a woman. It was based off of balance, all right? And that balance was called Ma'at, all right? Not only the balance of Ma'at, but the spiritual dialectical laws of opposites that they saw in the spiritual story. And that became their creation story at this particular time, that the Hebrews copied and made Genesis off of, one account after the other. Now, how in the making of Bibles, okay, I'm saying plural because there are many Bibles. Where was the first Bible written at? In Alexandria, Egypt. Why in Alexandria, Egypt? Because when the Romans came in, the Greeks before them, as I said, the Greeks loved Egypt, all right? A lot of the stories about Egypt that we know is because of the Greeks who had so much a love for Egypt. Most conquerors who will come into a country, they destroy, all right? They destroy, and try to bring in their way of life and so forth. But that didn't happen with the Greeks. They fell in love with the Greek, not with the Comedian people, but they loved the spiritual stories. So when the Romans came in, they adopted, after they took the throne from the Greeks, they came in. But their mission was to make Egypt a slave culture, okay, to them, okay, to grow food for Rome, all right? And that's after, with the story, we know about the story of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, okay? And we know about the story of Octavian that changed his name to Augustus. Why Augustus? Because in August, that's when he defeated Kemet through defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra. And in fact, August is named after him, okay? The names of the months are named after the Romans. Octavian got his name. This is why we say October.
Right. So I mean, since you went there, I wasn't planning to go there, but since you went there, Cleopatra is a confusing case because she's later in the dynastic
at
line.
The very end. Well, it's not even part of it. She's at the very end because she's during the Ptolemaic period, and see that Kemet was no more.
Okay, Ptolemaic period, how would you characterize that?
Okay, the Ptolemaic period, we're talking around 300 years BC, okay. This is during the Ptolemaic period. This is during the time that when Alexander comes in 332 BCE and conquers Egypt. Keep in mind that the Greeks were already there with the philosophers, okay, with Thales and Pythagoras, okay. So they studied. So this became a place of knowledge, all right? This became a fascination, okay? It's like the world looks at America today. Everybody wants to come to America because this is supposed to be the place of knowledge and wisdom. So people come here to go to universities.
Right.
And, boy, that's the key thing right there, money. Multinational corporations. So,
but I mean, I think the reason I'm bringing that up, we've talked about this before, the whole controversy with the Egyptian government trying to shut down Jada Pinkett Smith's interpretation of Cleopatra. We'll get some clarity on that when we come forward and why it matters that this is all happening during the period of Ptolemaic period. Ashra Kwesi is my guest, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 15.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates our own Keith Underwood, host of the weekend entertainment show Black in the Green Room, on his recent honor at the annual National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. Keith received a first place award presented by the Los Angeles Press Club for his entertainment reporting, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations, Keith, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-550-9651.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Celebrate good times, come on!
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Malik Books on celebrating 35 years in business.
It's a celebration.
Malik Books proudly houses one of the largest African American and diverse children's books in the nation. This is the perfect time to pick up holiday reads, meaningful gifts, and to support literacy in our community. For 35 years, Malik Books has stood strong in the Black Book Revolution, uplifting stories that heal, inspire, and transform. One reader at a time. Change your thoughts, change your life. Books are the gift that keeps giving. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, congratulations to Malik Books on 35 years of culture, pride, and community.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
With Ashra and Merira Kwesi, and actually go to a traveling university and learn all of these things on site. I want to go. I'm one of these.
We lecture every day. You know about everything before you get to the site. So Kemet Nu means black people too, by the way.
Kemet Nu means
black people know
black
thyself.
people.
Black people know thyself is literally with Kemet Nu.
And so we can go to kemetnu.com. We can go and find out about the tours. You do 2 per year,
2 in
weeks,
the summer because
incredibly affordable.
Yes. Well, because we do it every year, and because we own our own business. All right, we don't have an intermediary travel agency speaking for us in Egypt. When I talk to Egypt. Okay, I'm the one that fights for the prices for our people.
They're used to you guys,
right? And they know we're coming every year.
Yeah.
And we're, in fact, this year, this is 2025 going into 2026 summer. We will have the same price. All right, and so we were able to keep the same prices last year,
which is incredible because
and it just blows my mind
now.
to see other tours going to Egypt. I've seen one as much as $10,000, and they're not lecturing, and it's just blowing me away. With these crazy prices out there. But when you don't have your own agency, then you got some intermediary person or travel agency that's not working on your behalf. They're only working for the money part of it.
kemetnu.com, kemetnu.com if you want to find out more about the tours, or you can get some of your books
and our DVDs that we produce. Right, it's all on the site.
Yeah,
I always tell people keep those DVD players because that's one way we can still communicate without having some artificial intelligence or whatever else in between us.
Right, true. And the thing about it is, you actually gave one of your books to my son, and it was really interesting to see. I didn't see him reading it in front of me, but I noticed it was always in the bathroom, and it looked like it'd been read and read and read, and then one day.
Yeah, we try to keep it down to earth, and these are real personalities. These are not mythological, personalities of the ancient Nissus are referred to as kings. Okay. And queens, in our book, these are real and going back thousands of years.
Well, clearly it was influential because a year or so later, I start hearing that my child is looking into Kemetic alchemy and all these ancient studies, and I said, boy,
I've been on that journey. Traveling to Kemet, it takes you into so many areas, like a tree. You're going in different branches and so forth, but it still all comes together. So it was great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Your meeting with. My child had a huge impact in.
Oh, great! I'm honored.
In the book, so you can get all that stuff at kemetnu.com, kemetnu.com. So, you kind of in passing mentioned Cleopatra. I know there's a lot of confusion. Jada Pinkett Smith portrays her as black. The Egyptian government of today, which is an Arab-based group. Got all angry and upset. They, I think, are producing their own version of Cleopatra. But you've said it's confusing because this happened during the Ptolemaic period. So why does that change maybe her ethnicity or her origin story?
Well, first of all, let's deal with this. Was not dealing with Jada Pinkett. This was not the first time. We can go all the way back to 1990 when Newsweek had Cleopatra on the cover of Newsweek. And they said, I think the title was Cleopatra Black? Okay, Afrocentrist debate over Cleopatra. Now, see, this is where the problem comes in at. Why are you concentrating on Cleopatra? That's at the end. So this has been my argument even in the 80s at the universities with some professors. Why are we concentrating on her? Because the Greeks are there. at this particular time, but it's at the end. In fact, why don't we deal with Utmost Nefertari, the first 1,500 years before Cleopatra, a very well melanated sister. You can't argue with her. But talking about Cleopatra, you're still trying to make Egypt a European world, and we don't know the history.
Right, so Cleopatra could have been Greek. She could have been mixed. What we
she
would
was
call
mixed. She
so-called biracial.
Biracial. If you want to, if that's what, biracial. They say today, because first of all, when an army comes in, they don't come with their wives riding on the horse too.
Right.
Okay. They come in, they evade, and that's the part of the raping, the miscegenation. All this takes place. Okay.
Right.
Even with us here in America, it's the same thing. Okay. It took place when we were kidnapped from the African continent. The same process that took place. Okay. The raping, the miscegenation, the same thing. So Cleopatra, okay, we don't see her mother. We see her father is Ptolemy XII. That's her father. He is Greek. Okay. Now, being that she is from, she's in Kemet and the line is in Kemet when the Greeks come there, her mother, grandmother, definitely were Kemetians, all right, those we refer to as Egyptians today. Egyptian, by the way, is Greek, so we don't say Egyptian, we say Kemetians, all right. When we speak of the Arabs, they come hundreds of years later. They come in as invaders in 641 A.D. at this particular time.
So now, she could have been Kemetic, i.e., Black African, mixed
Greek,
with the
because
Greek.
her father is Ptolemy.
Right.
Her father is Ptolemy.
So she has to have Greek.
If she was in America today, she would clearly be looked at as a sister.
Right.
It's to be clear on that. All right.
Right.
But why are we concentrating on that time period?
Right,
because
when there
have
was already
to argue with.
Because there was already colonization that was taking place.
The colonization is taking place, but okay, why are we just concentrating on her? Because at that particular time, this is when the Greeks were here, and the argument is not only around Cleopatra, but the argument is trying to make Egypt a European world.
Right.
When we go back about Hatshepsut, there was no Greek civilization yet. There was no Greek during the time of the first, okay?
My role model,
okay.
Queen Hatshepsut.
Right, yeah. Okay, let's
Who
go
was
back.
actually a king, right?
Right, well, she ruled as a king, okay?
She ruled as a king. She's
right.
a woman.
Yeah, she's a woman. Yeah, because
king.
there was no man to take the throne at that time. In fact, my wife, she does an excellent presentation on the African Kemetic goddesses, the foundation of ancient Kemet. Powerful lecture that she deals with that. But it's the old kingdom of Nitocris, okay? These are the Kemetians of thousands of years before the Greeks. That's why Jada Pickett, okay, yeah, she was trying to bring the history there when she came to Egypt. I mean, but she went over there with Zadi Hawass. Zadi Hawass is a known, racist when it comes to African Kemetic history, all right? Because he gets his money, okay, from the European Egyptology world when you see him on the documentaries, all right? And that's how he gets his TV shows and everything else, all right? But had they came on a African-centered program, I think she may have started off with the ancient Kemetic queens long before Cleopatra and maybe came down to her. Now, when we look at Cleopatra, that is the end of ancient Kemet. After Augustus Caesar, whose previous name was Octavian, with that war that he fought against Mark Antony and Cleopatra, after defeat of them, that was the end of ancient Kemet. At that time, this is when they started to take ideas from ancient Kemet, and the making of the Western version of Christianity came into Constantine with ecumenical conferences, okay, a new world order. This new world order at that time was a religious world order. And that was based off of the Kemetic knowledge that was taken up out of Kemet. Many of the spiritual concepts of Kemet was de-Africanized, and that's why the fear that it could not be related to Africa, all right? It had to be related to Europe, because now, why is all the emphasis around Cleopatra, all right? And just lock you into that era, because once we open up the door, now we see Western civilization, how Greek philosophers and everyone else, and how civilization of the Western world and ideas were taken from ancient Kemet.
So by them focusing on Cleopatra, or them, and by them I mean, Newsweek or Time, whoever put that on the cover, and this
European Egyptologists.
and this Awaz person and other people like that, they set up Afrocentric Kemetic scholars because they have a credible argument that Europeans were present in Kemet during that period.
You know what's mind-blowing, Dominique? It's the term Afrocentric ideas. You know where it came? You know who was fighting that battle first?
Nope.
In Egypt. the indigenous people in Egypt. I mean, even myself in Egypt, I see a sister, and okay, she would be referred to as Egyptian. Okay, she's wearing African earrings. Okay, this was last summer when that whole, or summer before last when this whole thing came up. And I asked her, I said, are you from Egypt? She said, yes. I said, you're wearing Africa earrings. She said, yes. I'm an African living in Egypt. That's who I am. And I said, oh, because they have all this thing about Cleopatra, well, that's Zadi Hawass and that's all this stuff. But we know who we are. We are on the African continent. We are Africans. This is at the grassroots level of Egypt. This is what we don't hear, the people. Just like many of us at the grassroots level talking about the history of Africa. You don't get that on CNN. So they're throwing this out to the world, okay, as though all of Egypt is in this whole European Egyptology timeline and history of this is a European world. No, that's not the case. Many brothers and sisters over here, and this particular brother named, he was in the early, bear with me, he was in the early 1900s who was fighting for the African Kemetic history of Egypt, okay, for people to talk about. All right. So the term, many people associate Afrocentrism with Asante, but he was already talking about that way back then when he was talking about how this knowledge came up out of Africa. And I know we got this technology here, so just bear with me for 1 second, but I don't want to take up all of my time. Just looking for this one term.
Ashra Kwesi is my guest. He is at kemetnew.com, kemetnew.com, if you want to travel with him and his wife and a bunch of other conscious, scholarly-minded folks to Africa, to Egypt, which is in Africa. You can do so. They go twice every summer. It's incredibly affordable.
I'll give it to you after the show, but that way you'll have it as well. But my point is that the argument of the whole African-centered knowledge was first argued in Egypt, not with us here in America. And that's what people don't know. All right.
About to learn a lot of things you don't know because we're talking with Ashra Kwesi, one of our premier scholars here in the United States and around the world, and an historian who focuses on Kemet.
Right here.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, here she is right here. Okay. Where did Afrocentrism come from? Now, this is a sister from Egypt talking about how that in Egypt, that this is where this whole knowledge came up out of.
Where did Afrocentrism come from? This idea that ancient Egypt and ancient Sudan civilizations were African with black identity.
All right, more on this when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Trump administration plans to ban gender-affirming care for minors. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says it's to protect children.
President Trump has made child protection a national priority. Sex-rejecting procedures rob children of their futures.
Under proposed rules, hospitals offering puberty blockers, hormones, or surgeries could lose Medicaid and Medicaid funding. A new UCLA report shows Hollywood streaming lacks diversity. Of the top 250 scripted series in 2024, over 90% were created by white people, with white men making up 79% of showrunners. Just 8% were creators of color. And Wiz Khalifa is appealing a 9-month sentence in Romania for smoking weed at a festival last year. Despite an earlier fine, the country's Court of Appeal upheld the jail term Thursday. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams have some defensive issues to clean up before the playoffs. They gave up a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter last night in Seattle and a game-winning 2-point conversion in overtime. The result was a dramatic 38-37 win for Seattle. breakdowns by the Rams defense overshadowed spectacular performances by Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. Stafford had 457 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Nacua had 12 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. Seattle now has the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Rams can get it back if they win their final 2 games and Seattle loses their last 2. The Rams finish up at Atlanta and at home against Arizona. Seattle plays Carolina and San Francisco on the road. The Lakers are 12-3 on the road after their 143-135 win at Utah. 45 points for Luka Doncic. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Cedars-Sinai is helping shape the future of Los Angeles, working alongside local communities and showing up with resources and healthcare programs that open doors for people across the city. Through career development programs like Next Gen Healthcare Pathways and partnerships with over 200 organizations like Black Men in White Coats, Cedars-Sinai is educating and empowering future healthcare leaders right here in LA. With access to education, mentorships, and hands-on experiences, we can build a healthier Los Angeles together. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
One year ago, flames tore through Altadena and Eaton Canyon, changing lives forever. From the ashes, can a beloved community rise stronger? Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the 1-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community. And we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that Black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Continuing the conversation with lecturer, scholar, and tour leader, Ashra Kwesi of Kemet New, kemetnew.com. You were talking about the origins of Afrocentricity and how this man, Dusé Muhammad, who wrote the book The Land of the Pharaohs, really starts to call out the blackness, if you will, of Egypt.
Right, of ancient Egypt. So again, we were talking about how when Jada Pinkett went over, and then all of a sudden, it was an uproar about the fact that she was making Cleopatra black, and the fact that this was Afrocentrism trying to take away the history from Egypt, when in fact the whole African-centered movement, as you said, Dosé Muhammad, who wrote his book, and it was saying that Egypt was black, that Egypt is an African civilization, and was fighting against the racism, of the European Egyptologists and Arabs, at that time. And he was suppressed and even came to the United States to even meet Marcus Garvey. So this is the information showing the whole African diaspora and the whole movement of consciousness, that the fact that this is an African civilization. But the point is that, and one can go to where did Afrocentrism come from on YouTube and see our sister here from Egypt giving the account of the fact that this is a whole African movement, that was part of Egypt as well. As I talked to the sister who I saw in Egypt wearing African earrings.
Right. And it's back to this idea about the colonization academic colonization, the colonization that, we think of racism in the context of the United States, but when you look at it in the context of the continent of Africa, it's also about colonizing, taking and plagiarizing our ideas, taking our land.
Cultural genocide.
Cultural genocide. And, in the environment that we're in right now, where the president can say that white South Africans are being killed and exploited and all of this stuff. When you travel to South Africa and you see they own everything.
Right.
They control everything except the government, and arguably they control that.
It's an attack on the whole Africans and diaspora and Africans on all over the world. That's what this is.
Right. And the only reason I bring it up is it's part of a pattern, right?
A pattern,
it's part of a pattern of Europeanizing everything that's considered as an accomplishment and blackening everything that they consider as a problem.
Well, peace be upon him, as Malcolm told us, making the victim the perpetrator. Okay, so this is what, bringing up Trump, this is what he is doing. That's their classic move, all right? Here we are the victim, and now trying to make that the whites are the victim and we are the perpetrators. So, but to keep our mind out of ancient Africa.
So when scholars like yourself and and Dr. Ben, are when you're coming with this more black version of history, which is a more it's provable, as you say, you've got the receipts there on the temples.
There's receipts here. Humanity's here. And without black people, there would be no people on the planet Earth. That's the receipt.
So we can start there, right? So, But why is it so important for these so-called Egyptologists, the Egyptian ones, the European ones? You always tell us it started with the German, but now this Hawass guy. I mean, he's an Egyptian.
He's an Arab Egyptian.
An Arab Egyptian who was Minister of Tourism and Antiquity. So that you've got the tourism side on one side, and then you've got the academic so-called Egyptologists. Why is it so important to them to make Egyptian culture, Kemetic culture, history, accomplishment not black? Why is it so important to them to Europeanize it? And I would also argue to marginalize scholars like yourself and Dr. Ben, and Sheikh Anta Diop and others.
Well, again, it's the cultural genocide of African history, to take it away. In fact, Dr. Ben wrote a book on it, The Cultural Genocide in African Black Studies. So again, it's to keep our mind away from ancient Africa, because keep in mind, Europe has no ancient history. When we look at Greece, we're talking about at best 800 years BC, and I'm giving a little bit, all right? So when you're dealing with these monuments in Kemet, they go back thousands of years. The whole mindset of the Western world, that the world was in savagery until the Western world came into being. And now trying to claim the ancient monuments and temples, even though the greatest colossal on the planet Earth, Ra, Haru, and Akhet, all invading armies came in, just like Count Voni, had to look up at that colossal, as we do, as many millions do to come to Egypt. And as he gave the description, this is an African colossal. No European man can walk up to that colossal and say this is a European. As Count Voni, who wrote his book, Ruins of the Empire, we're talking about the largest colossal on the planet Earth and the oldest colossal on the planet Earth. 240 feet is a representation of a recumbent lion with the Nissus king at the head of Haru that we see here. Massive structure here, as well as the monuments and the reliefs. And furthermore, if it was supposed to be the Arabs and the Europeans, why did they come in and plunder and destroy? In fact, they dug up cots, or they refer to as mummies, and carried them off to Europe and ground them up, as the documentary that I just showed you, and to sprinkle on their food to get the power of the mummy or the power of the king of Egypt. This was done.
That's
all right.
Gross.
Also, King Tutankhamun, he cannot rest in peace. If it's supposed to be a Arab culture or European culture, to this very day, you can go to the Pateta, or meaning Tombs of Eternity, and see King Tutankhamun, see his cot or his mummy laid out there. Such disrespect. How you're not going to come to America and see George Washington or Abe Lincoln, or go to Britain and see King James laid out there like that. So if it was supposed to be a respectful culture that belonged to the Arabs and the Europeans, why would you disrespect this cot? Why would you take and rip his head off, okay, and do all these things to the cots and ripping them apart if it was supposed to be a culture that belonged to them, all right? No one's going to desecrate their own culture like that and put it on display. Only in Egypt did they come in and dig up the mummies, dig them up, put them on display, and all these kind of things because they have no respect for it. And if people became conscious of that this is ancient African Kemetic culture of the Nile Valley, Kushite Kemetic culture, of the Nile Valley, then there would be a consciousness and an upraising for the desecration of what they're doing to these monuments and temples as well as mummies. Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to the beginning of our conversation for a second because I was so smitten by your description of your interaction with Dr. Ben, and then you go to the motherland with him, and then you study under him for 14 years, 14
years.
And now 43 years for you bringing others there. How did that change your life? I mean, other than the obvious thing, it changes your career, but how does it change your soul, your mindset, your outlook?
It's a spiritual awakening, something that I never had before, something that, it was to be in contact with spiritual ideas that you were taught to believe in something else, all right? And a belief system is somebody telling you something over and over again, or if you use the etymology or the roots of words and say, get to the root of this word, belief, and you go to the dictionary and they say you can always tell the root of a word if you look above and below. So above belief is a word called belie, B-E-L-I-E, to distort and misrepresent. So in that belief is a distortion and a misrepresentation. So it became a whole spiritual awakening. Not only was it a spiritual awakening, but it was a spiritual transformation. It was, in ancient Kemet, it was called a keparah. I'm going through a transformation now. Your spirit is now flying into the future. You're not in the present time now. You are going back into the Sankofa. You are going back to retrieve that what we have lost. You're bringing it to the present. You're shooting it into the future. You're making sure you're planting seeds. A whole transformation. I did not have that before. All right. So that is what it did for me. I mean, to even talk about it. All right. And the fact that there's so much of it. It's not like, a little bit. All right. It's a whole nother world once we open up to this whole spiritual awakening. So if the Europeans were empowered by this, not if, they were empowered by this, and they created a whole world view of the ancient Kemetic knowledge, look what it did for them. So if we take it, what will it do for us?
It's a great point.
As after all, it belongs to us.
And then the universe or God sent to you, Merira Kwesi, and you guys have been married for 30 years
30
now.
years now.
And you're on the
we
same
met in
page.
Egypt. That's where we met. We met in Egypt, right? We met in Egypt, right? We met. Well, maybe we need to talk about it more.
Yeah.
But we met in Egypt. Her family came on Dr. Ben's tour. All right. And I was going through a depression. All right, because I was a couple years out of a divorce. All right, thinking this was going to be a lonely journey. That who's going to be on this journey? With me. On this. Dealing with this. She came on, so we met on the tour, and so we started dating. I lived in LA at the time. She lived in Dallas, going back and forth, and we decided to live in Dallas. Okay, when the earthquake came in '94, it rocked her world. She never experienced anything like that. So I moved to Dallas, never experienced tornadoes, but shakedown, blown away, but still we were together there in Dallas. So we so it's been great. Dr. Ben, in fact, did our marriage ceremony.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In fact,
Amazing.
To that story, even add on to that story, a year before, and this is the honest truth, the year before she came on the tour, I walked through the greatest temple on the planet Earth, called the Temple of Amen-Ipit-Asut, called Karnak today. This is a temple where 80,000 students matriculated through this temple. This was great knowledge in university, still mind-blowing to this very day. Hyper-style halls, 79 feet high columns. I walked through those 134 columns. And the spiritual deity, that temple is dedicated is Amen, that we still say at the end of our prayers. The Greeks are the ones that took Amen up out of Africa and called him Zeus Amen, and the Romans called him Jupiter Amen, and the Byzantine Romans dropped Zeus and Jupiter and just said Amen. So when we end our prayers with Amen, that's what it goes back to, that temple, Amen-Ipit-Asut. But anyway, I'm walking through 134 columns. I said, Amen, I've given praise to thee, I've given homage to thee, and now my enemies all around me. I need a net or hemp. That's the Kemetic word for divine wife to be on my side. Merira comes the next year. And the following year, Dr. Ben did our marriage ceremony in the very temple that I asked for her. Okay. And many people said, well, I've been praying and praying, and my prayers haven't been answered. I said, well, you might be calling on the wrong God.
Okay, so going there, does that mean,
that was the journey.
I mean, so how would you consider how would you label your spirituality?
I label our spirituality as our ancestors saw it as Neter Ankh, divine life. That's how they saw it, divine life in Matnechet, in Mother Nature, divine forces all around us. That's the divine forces, not man-made things, all right? Our ancestors took what they saw from their empirical observation of life itself, and they incorporated that into their spirituality, all right? So they did not see anything, like animal worship, but they saw the innate intelligence in animal life that we don't like. I have a German Shepherd. He knows things that I don't know. He can sense things and let me know, all right? That's a divine intelligence that he has. They also saw that innate intelligence in nature, all right, itself, all right? So they combined that together. In fact, when you look at the Shanu is the name, the royal name. In fact, the fact that we got a first and last name, that even came from Kemet, right? So when we see, yes, like the king's name, Ursama At Ra Septepen Ra Meso Mari Amen, all right? Beautiful name.
That sounds like about 4 or 5 names.
Yeah, first and last name. And it was always represented as a bee, okay, and a sedge plant, all right, and his name, before his name, Nesu Beti, all right. That's the king, the Nesu of Upper and Lower Egypt. Why the bee? The innate intelligence of animal life. Why the sedge? The innate intelligence of nature. And it's very interesting about the bee because they're saying even now that they know that there's an unbalance in the world because the bees are dying. What did Kemet know about the bee? All right, that was their keen observation of life itself. When you look at the scarab beetle, symbolizing Khepera.
Right, the scarabs.
The scarab, it rolls up, the dung into a ball like the sun. Okay, so it was like at high noon, the scarab flies. That was called Khepera. Okay, transformation is taking place. Why did they mummify the body? Because this is what the Romans didn't understand. They took it literally that the physical body would get up and go to heaven. No. It was the Sahu that they called the spiritual body would rise up. A metamorphosis would take place, in that process. So think of a caterpillar. Doesn't it crawl on the ground? Doesn't it form into a cocoon? Isn't that called a chrysalis? A metamorphosis takes place. Something that once crawled on the ground now flies. So they observed this, so they wrapped the body up to go through this chrysalis process, this metamorphosis. The physical body stayed on earth, but the spiritual body, called the Sahu, goes on. I show a relief here at the Temple of Heru, and it's called the Dancing Ka. Now, the Romans took it literally, that it was not the physical body, but the spiritual body. But why has he got 2 arms up, 1 leg down and 1 leg up? Because he's called the Dancing Ka, because he's not in the bandages no more. He's in the spiritual realm. As I always say, our ancestral genetic memory bank opens up because in the church we get the African Holy Ghost. We run around with our arms up. That's the Ka, So this is what the Romans didn't understand. Now think of the European image of this Jesus image. Why is he wrapped up like a mummy? All right, that's taken from ancient Kemet. Where's this Christ concept? Is that coming from a concept of nature of chrysalis through that cocoon where that metamorphosis takes place at? The other temple we go to, the Temple of Heru, in the ceiling, it's like your lights here, all right? The sun comes down through the light. And there you see Asar is lying down for his Ka, the spirit, to go to the light. I do a comparison to show Western art took the same idea and showed Jesus going to the light. That was taken from those temples during the Greek and Roman period when that took place.
So does that mean you would, I'll hold the question. I'll continue this question when we come forward. I'm talking with Ashra Kwesi. He's a lecturer, a scholar, an African historian. KemetNu.com, KemetNU.com is where you can find out more. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Unwrap LA this winter with Metro. Whether you're heading to a family gathering or last-minute shopping, Metro's got you. Enjoy free rides across Metro on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Move with joy. Move with community this holiday season. Go Metro.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
Ashra Kwesi is my guest. What an amazing conversation. So you talk about, Mother Nature.
Matnechit. That fact, Mother Nature gets its name from Matnechit.
Matnechit. That's
Mother
wild.
Nature.
It's crazy. And all of these concepts that you're laying out, which are, origin stories, linguistic ties that tie Christianity and what you call the European version of Christianity back to ancient Kemet. So when I'm asking you about your spirituality, and you say Mother Nature, the universal spirit.
How they observed it.
Does that mean you're an OG Christian?
An OG. Well, no, I can't say I'm an OG Christian. I have to go back to an OG African spirituality. Because without African spirituality, there would not be any Christianity. So why would I deal with the secondary?
Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of my question. Is it the secondary, or is that?
Well, it's the secondary because it's a corruption. It's a corruption. It's a corruption.
Okay, so you see it as a corruption.
I see it as a corruption because it's a corruption because they're not talking about it. For instance, if I borrow something from you, okay, and I use it and I give you credit for it, that's one thing. But if I steal something from you and try to claim it for myself, then, all right, and then I distort what you gave to me, is that a corruption? That's a corruption, all right? So that's what Western version of Christianity did. It corrupted the spiritual ideas, okay, and then demonized and vilified ancient Egypt. So the Western church, the biggest fear of the Western church was Egypt, okay? Why was the Egypt feared by the Western church, okay? Why was the temples, as I've been saying, shut down? Because you have the proof. You have the documentation for anyone who did a critical analytical analysis to see that. They can see easily that this was plagiarized from ancient Egypt. So when I look at it from how our ancestors and how they saw it, all right, and life itself, all right. So when the Romans put a picture up in front of you and say that's your Christ, all right, that's what they did, all right. When ancient Kemet said the Ka, the spirit you are, that is part of your spirit from the time of your birth. And if someone's trying to harm you, you rise up your Ka, okay, to fight against tyranny and oppression. So that's the difference. And from that time out, we're going outside of ourselves instead of taking the longest journey. And what is the longest journey? Inside yourself.
So for Black Christians, is there a way to, to sort of realign their spirituality with its original intent without having to reject core beliefs?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to get into Black divinity. All right, we can't demonize our own image and representation. In Western art, the devil was looked at as black, okay, and all these negative things. So what happened? It killed our own Black divinity. Our own spirituality could not surface. All right, and worst of all, we got caught into worshiping, okay, and deifying other European images. All right, as though that was real in the angelical realm and representation of that. That is called spiritual enslavement. Spiritual enslavement is when the enemy becomes the deity in the spiritual subconscious of our mind. That is the worst form of enslavement. It's worse than the chains on your body. It's the chains on your spirituality. So if one is getting into a spiritual place, all right, then you're going to go on that journey to know, all right? But if you're into just a belief, all right, if you're just into, then of course you're locked into the oppressor's point of view of religion. For the most part, for us as Africans in America, started on the plantation, how to deify these images and so forth. And it's hard for a lot of us, all right? When I look at Brother Clegg, who started the Shrine of the Black Madonna, in fact, I have to lecture there next week, all right? Peace be upon him, his ancestor now, all right? He's coming from a Christian perspective, but what did he do? He brought the Black Madonna, all right? That Black Madonna is a set. When the Romans carried a set throughout their empire, at the time that they were worshiping her, that's still in Rome to this day, they got temples dedicated to her, okay? The Herculean worship of the goddess Aset. When they went to Gaul, that is France, all right, they worshiped her. The Notre Dame still has that Black Madonna in there, so the conversion to Christianity, she just became black, but that represented Aset. There are over 500...
Aset is Isis.
It's ISIS. There were over 500 black Madonnas in Europe. And people travel throughout Europe. They say, why do you have all these black Madonnas there? All right, because the Romans carried Aset there. She was known as Black Kemet Aset, okay, or the Black Aset. When you go to London, you know London was called Latonia, all right? That's where it gets its name. Latonia, the Romans built a temple to honor Aset when they came in and conquered into Britannia that became Britain. So London gets its name from Aset. France, okay, per Aset. Dr. Chekon Diop points out that Paris, France, gets its name from Per Isis, okay, or the House of Isis, or Per Aset. That's her original Kemetic name. That temple that was closed down, the last one that's on the border of Egypt and Sudan to this very day, all right? So, and it's on an island. The architectural structure of the Western Church, the oblong shape, even the Western Church gets its design from the Temple of Aset. So the Notre Dame is built exactly to the Temple of Aset. All right. So when the Byzantine Romans, okay, were converting now the Germania and Britannia and Gaul into Western version of Christianity, Aset literally becomes the Black Madonna. And that's how we have the Black Madonna. So when we go back to Brother Clay, the shrine of the Black Madonna, he's a Christian, came up out of Catholicism, okay. Western version of Christianity starts with Catholicism, okay. 380 AD, that's when they started the whole religion, and all the other denominations it's under that umbrella, okay. So he is now bringing that back, but he's starting with that black divinity, with Aset, all right. We're coming from that micro womb, our mother, all right. And our ancestors understood the macro womb was Nut, all right. Now, the brainwashing is that deep that you're born from your own black mother's womb. The day's my birthday, Earth Day, as we refer to it as. My mother gave birth to me from her micro universe.
Happy birthday, happy solar return.
Asante Sana, many
or
thanks.
As your wife would say, happy Earth Day.
Mm-hmm. So I come from my mother's micro womb, and I'm brainwashed now to say that the European Mary and Jesus is the mother of God. When she gave birth to me and breastfed me, am I supposed to be that brainwashed to say that now this is the mother of God right here?
Very close to the end of the hour, but I feel like we're starting a whole new show. If you want to learn more about this stuff, go to kemetnu.com, KEMETNU.com, and there you will find DVDs. There you will find all the information to travel to Kemet.
Many years Egypt. Putting information together and comfort your home. And a lot of the newer DVDs I actually are on our educational programs in Egypt live right there. So I'm right there. I have one on Christianity, which I'm lecturing, and I go back and forth. I'm showing the temple, just like we're talking right now. Well, I go right to the temple and bring it right back so you can see it for yourself. So don't take my word for it. It's there.
KemetNu.com, that's where you can get all the information and with the visuals as well.
Visual documentation.
Ashra
Images shape
Kwesi.
our reality. Unfortunately, most of our reality is told by the Tel Live Vision, a 100-inch TV in a 12-by-12 living room in some cases.
Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing, spreading the knowledge that you have all around the world, and I appreciate the work that you're doing, bringing folks back to Kemet to see.
Not to believe in what I'm saying, just to think about it. I'm not here for people to believe what I'm saying, just to think about it.
Just to activate your
know
gray
thyself.
Man, woman, know thyself.
There you go.
Indeed. Ashra Kwesi, thank you so much.
Dominique Asante Sada, many thanks for you for this radio communiversity.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashra Kwesi, always making us think and go a little deeper. Happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. I'm so very grateful to you rolling with us, supporting us, and being part of our delegation 365 days a year. Like my mama, the late, great Diane DePrima used to say, history is now. Like I always say, we're making it together. Until next time, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Trump administration plans to ban gender-affirming care for minors. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says it's to protect children.
President Trump has made child protection a national priority. Sex-rejecting procedures rob children of their futures.
Under proposed rules, hospitals offering puberty blockers, hormones, or surgeries could lose Medicaid and Medicaid funding. A new UCLA report shows Hollywood streaming lacks diversity. Of the top 250 scripted series in 2024, over 90% were created by white people, with white men making up 79% of showrunners. Just 8% were creators of color. And Wiz Khalifa is appealing a 9-month sentence in Romania for smoking weed at a festival last year. Despite an earlier fine, the country's Court of Appeal upheld the jail term Thursday. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams have some defensive issues to clean up before the playoffs. They gave up a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter last night in Seattle and a game-winning 2-point conversion in overtime. The result was a dramatic 38-37 win for Seattle. Breakdowns by the Rams defense overshadowed spectacular performances by Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. Stafford had 457 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Nacua had 12 catches for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. Seattle now has the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Rams can get it back if they win their final 2 games and Seattle loses their last 2. The Rams finish up at Atlanta and at home against Arizona. Seattle plays Carolina and San Francisco on the road. The Lakers are 12-3 on the road after their 143-135 win at Utah. 45 points for Luka Doncic. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Time now for the best of Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Live from historic Lamert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's Best of Tavis Smiley show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook